Welcome back to Finance Friday, and today I'm going to be talking about an investment that I recently made in a company that not many people I think would have heard about, and it's the Mosaic Company, ticker symbol MOS. Now, the Mosaic Company specializes in fertilizer production, and it was spun out of the massive agricultural behemoth, which is the Cargill group, which produces a lot of pulses, a lot of different products. And I must add, quite interesting, it's still privately owned by a family group. Now, the Mosaic Company is trading right now at 64.73. Looking at its yearly chart, it is down a little bit. It made recent highs of about $78, $79, but it's down to 64.73. But that's a major run up from where it was about a year ago, which is around the $20, $30 mark. And going back even further, it has gone quite right down to in the teens, and that is because the Mosaic Company is very cyclical in nature. Now, when I look at the revenue of the Mosaic Company over the past couple of years, the past 10 years or so, it has been quite a roller coaster ride, in that it has gone up, it has gone down. But overall, it's a bit higher than it was about 10 years ago when it was spun out of the private corporation. And it's also a bit more profitable now than it was back then. Free cash flow is increasing. And one thing that I find interesting is that they do pay a dividend. Right now, it's a pretty secure dividend, but in the past, they have actually had a payout ratio in excess of 100%, which, as you know, if you've been listening to us for quite a long time, that would suggest that the dividend is at risk, because it means that the company may not have enough funds on hand to pay the dividend, but rather than lose face as a company that stopped paying a dividend, they maybe borrow money or issue more shares in order to pay a dividend. But right now, the Mosaic Company is in a good position to pay a dividend. Looking at their debt ratio, they do have enough cash on hand. They have a current ratio of 1.1, which means that they have enough short-term assets to pay all their short-term liabilities. And long-term, they have a debt ratio of about 51, 52%, which means that they have enough assets to pay all their long-term liabilities. Now, most of the assets are in the form of plant and machinery, which is somewhat fixed and not easily transferable, but still they do have a pretty good debt ratio. Return on capital employed, which is a measure of their how good their management is about 14.9% right now, and it was way down at 2% up until about 3 or 4 years ago. Now, all of these measures suggest that the Mosaic Company is not a great company in the sense of what I usually look for in terms of a company to invest in. However, the company is going through a great moment right now, and that its products are in increasing demand across the globe, because there are not many companies. It's not a great moat in that they're the only producer, but there are very few fertilizer producers around the globe right now who are able to withstand some of the restrictions that are being put in place in terms of Russia and other countries banning fertilizer exports and the imports and the export of fertilizer inputs. So the Mosaic Company, they could be in environments where their products are going to be in demand for a very long time. And as you all know, we all need food, and I could see them having the power to increase prices, not injudiciously, but in order to cover some of the losses they made in the past and to actually be profitable. And so while the company shares has shot up to about 70 and then dropped back down to about the $60 range, I think that the story of the run-up on fertilizer prices and food prices in general is just beginning. And so it looks like, while this might not be a great long-term play, this might be a good short to medium-term investment, given that I think this will last for a while. Now, the Mosaic Company, when we look at what the insiders are doing or what the management is doing, there has been some selling. The CEO and I believe the CFO sold quite a bit of stock recently. But when I think about it, if you own this stock as an insider from the days when it was like 30, 20, $10 a share or thereabouts, and it has run up to now 64.73. I don't really blame them for taking profits. That is a six-fold increase in the value of the share price, and so profit taking right now by insiders, I think, is only human for them to try to take profits now, and I fully understand that. I guess another reason why I don't see this as a potential long-term play, but something more short-term in nature, maybe about a year or two, as this investment theory, to give that investment theory to play out. That said, you're not exactly buying the stock very cheap right now. It has a price to earnings ratio of 15, which is lower than the typical benchmark of a price to earnings ratio of 20. But when you look at the simple moving averages and even comparing it to previous price to earnings ratios, it's a bit higher quite a bit higher, I should say, than it has been in the past. So you're not necessarily buying at a huge discount, but you're buying something more on momentum, where you think that the price could increase a little bit. So with that said, when you look at it over a 5-year chart, so I'm just waiting on this 5-year chart to pull up, you see that, let me go on the max chart then, that while this is not an all-time high, they have all-time highs of about $140 or so in about 2004. There is a precedent for the Mosaic Company to go even higher, and as someone who is looking to maybe not make this a huge part of my portfolio, but a small part, and maybe, get little chunks here and there, I see this as a momentum trade more than an investment that I look to put a few dollars in, but not something that I plan to put into my retirement ideas. So the Mosaic Company is an interesting company for you guys to look at if you believe that food prices are going to increase. There are some other competitors in the market that you could also look at, like Nutrien is another big one. In fact, there's a Nutrien plant, I believe, in Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken. I think there's a Yara plant as well, also in Trinidad, which is a Dutch fertilizer producer. I'm not sure if Yara is publicly traded, but there are some other fertilizer producers that have been doing quite well. Mosaic Company, they recently had their earnings call. It was not a great quarter as compared to the other competitors, who actually saw quite a significant increase in not just revenue but profits. But I suspect, from listening to the earnings call, I suspect that the Mosaic Company, they do project that revenue will continue to increase throughout the rest of 2022. And unlike the others, which already got a little pop in the increase in revenues and profits, the Mosaic Company, to me, still has a long way to go when they actually show that they're bringing in more cash than before. This stock could pop even more than it has in the past. So if you're looking for a play on the whole agro economy situation right now, you could do a lot worse than looking at the Mosaic Company. Alright guys, so again, this is not investment advice. This is just my thoughts on a potential investment. And if you're thinking about investing, be sure to do your own research and come up with your own ideas so that you could deeply hold your own convictions on this stock and other stocks. Alright guys, so thanks for viewing, and as usual, be sure to like and subscribe.